CD Women at STEM, and it's really to encourage the participation of women in the STEM and related disciplines. So some of those quantitative techniques turn up over in the schools of business and in arts and so on. So STEM is right throughout this initiative here. I just want to share with you this little piece which comes from one of the Commission communications. So it's their equality strategy for 2020 to 2025. And you can just see this interesting finding here that young boys see themselves as having careers in STEM, and maybe young girls not quite so much. So it's important to encourage women in the first place. And then we have all those problems of leaky pipeline and all those other things. So we'll talk about some of those. But also an interesting finding here in that report is that only 22% of AI programmers are women. So, you know, there's a little bit of an imbalance there that we need to do something about. So that's one of those statistics that we have to deal with. Today's session, we want to talk a little bit about women in AI and ethical leadership, because to me it's all connected. It's all one part of the same thing. So I'm not going to spend too much longer explaining to you why you're here. Thank you everybody for registering and joining us. And I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Alessandra Sala, who's going to speak to us a little bit today about her role as Ambassador for Women in AI, and also about her journey to get here. So I'm going to hand over to you, Alessandra. I leave that there, and please feel free to take the floor there. Just to explain to participants, after Alessandra has spoken, we're going to open up to questions and answers. For now, if you would like to add anything into the chat, but then when Alessandra's ready, we should be able to open up for you to speak. Thank you, Alessandra.
Thank you, Paola. And thank you everyone for being with us today. This is an important session, and I want to thank you, UCD, for having this initiative of Women in STEM and pushing so hard to increase awareness and have an inclusive discussion. So a little bit about myself. Who I am, why I'm even here. As you can see from my accent, I'm not even from Ireland. So I started my journey in the very south of Italy. I did my PhD there, but early in my PhD, I understood that I wanted to explore how research was done abroad. So I went first to Switzerland at ETH in Zurich, and then I finished my PhD in the US, where I ended up staying 5 years. So I was at UC Santa Barbara. I did my postdoc, and then I joined the Department of Computer Science. So a research that was fundamentally meant to remain an academic research career. But in 2012, I got exposed to Bell Labs. Bell Labs is a research center, is an international research center in the telecommunication industry. I got this job offer. It was in Ireland. It was from California, much closer to Italy, to come here in Dublin. I came, I accepted the offer. I came and I found a second home in Ireland. So in those many years, I stayed 8.5 years with Bell Labs, which in 2016 became Nokia Bell Labs. I started as a senior researcher in the research center. Then I became a technical manager and then the head of analytics research division. I had teams in Paris, Budapest, Cambridge, UK, and Dublin. So the life before COVID was very active, a lot of traveling. And it has been a fantastic journey in understanding how to do research in an industrial place where you think about how these idea will be used in practice, who is going to impact, and why that thinking, the structural thinking, helped me to understand how important it was to think about the ethical implication of the technology that we invent. few years back, actually in September 2019, I was asked to lead Women in AI in Ireland. Women in AI is a non-profit organization, and different countries have their ambassador and their specific chapter. A chapter is simply a local organization which resonate with the global principle and the global mission, which acts in a specific geography. So we launched Women in AI. After 1 year, 1 year and a half, we have almost 2,000 followers. We have done a number of events. We have won a diversity award. The mission of Women in Ireland, the Women in AI in general, but specifically in Ireland, is to grow talent in AI from minorities and from women. So as Paula said, we have realized that in these many past years that the number of women, cultural diversity, representation from minorities, it's not sufficient in the AI world. And the AI technology is touching our life every single day. So we don't want to be discriminated. We don't want to be having a disadvantage versus some other human being which has the same equal potential that we do. So we need to take responsibility. We need to think which are the implications of this technology and help to grow more talent. So I have been asked for a year because I was growing teams. Ale, hire more women. You are a woman, you can hire more women. Yes, I did have a much stronger team as balance between women and men. However, you don't create women talent from nothing. So what I decided is to be more active on the education side. The only way we can create a balanced gender and diversity environment in industry is to train more people to become expert in the field. So I don't like when we just promote women because we are women. I like to promote our technical capabilities. So in Women in AI, what we have done, two main things. One, practice group, a group of women which have little experience in AI come together to solve an AI problems. We give them a mentor, we give them support, we give them structure, so they can learn together in a group, not alone. So don't be scared, don't be isolated in your learning journey. Doing it together, doing in a group is so much more fun. And then at the end of that, we showcase what they have achieved. So showcasing not women, but what they technically have learned and what technically they have achieved. So their technical capabilities. So they're possible employees, they see their experience, they see their results, and they can choose because they are technical, not just because there is a quota. So that's one thing. The second thing that we did, so just as a background information, a few years ago, I was part of a national effort in designing the first national master with the government, supported from ICT SkillNet. After 3 years, I was brought into the board to evaluate how fantastic was this master. And this master is super excellent. However, in 3 years, we got 13 women through the program. And only the first year, we had more than 150 applicants. So I was, oh my God, I designed a program that is against every single principle that I stand for. So I took the data, I went back and I did an analysis. Why people from minorities group are not even applying to this program? Forget about just then everything else. So we were hoping to reach out women between 30 and 40. asking them to commit 2 years, studying every night, lectures and so on, while a woman in that period of her life is having kids, possibly pushing her career. So how can you really expect even the most talented and disciplined person on earth with that load in the personal and um, working life to be able to commit for 2 years? On the other side, we were hoping to have diverse groups. So now let's take, for an example, the refugee community. Let's have more people from the refugee community in our master so we can train them. Great idea. They can possibly not even speak English very well. How can they even describe if they have the minimum requirement to enter into the master? So the master was by design cutting off a section of the society that we aim to reach, but it didn't have the right structure and the right support to reach out to those people. So I went back with the support of Chrysalis, and then let me stop here. We designed a new program, a certificate in AI, only 12 weeks, very agile, that gives all the building blocks, the fundamental knowledge that enable a person to enter into this world. And I went back to ICT SkillNet. I said, look at what I have taught to solve the problem that we have with the mastery in AI. I want to fundraise with women in AI. We need to sponsor women and minority who lost their job, and that was last June during COVID. So this is an opportunity for them to reskill in this period and to re-enter the workforce in an area where we need them. So ICT SkillNet and the government said, no, don't fundraise. The government will stand behind. They did everything. You can imagine a government supporting a new program. They have so much bureaucracy, evaluation, committee to assess the quality, launching a tender, selecting a vendor in November. So from June to November, we had selected 35 candidates, went through the program for free, fully supported from the government, with the support of Women in AI and Chrysalis, who designed the program first, run from TU, and fully funded from the government. That was the most impressive leadership in action that I have ever observed. Understanding that there is a need, understanding that there is an opportunity, and just putting effort, money, people, and time behind an idea that has been already in one cohort successful, and now we are up and running with the second cohort from tomorrow. So it has been a dramatic, lovely journey. In these many things that I was doing, and technical advisory board on some of the research center here, recently the chair of machine learning labs, a new SFI center. Nokia decided to leave Ireland, so Bell Labs has been, the lab has been closed down. So I decided to stay in Ireland because of those many things that were happening, which I really believed were meaningful to me. And I moved my job. So I became the director of AI and data science at Shutterstock. Now I'm growing an amazing team there, always looking for diversity, but we need to be strong together. Training people is what we need. And before I conclude and I leave to the floor for questions, I want to launch a call for action. I believe we need to create a hierarchical structure. I should influence the people within within an age and experience that are closer to me, and then use them to influence maybe the one in the university, and the young student in the university to influence the student in the high school, and so on. We need to help each other to reach out through our experiences, through our learning experience and learning journey, the generation before us, the generation that are becoming, have the possibility to become who we are today. And only by using this hierarchical approach, we can really deeply reach to people. I think a 20 years old has a much deeper impact if she or he speaks to the 15 years old instead of if I do, because that age resonance, that experience resonance that they have. So having people to train each other and growing the pipeline as a collective effort should be our social responsibility, because this technology is going to impact every one of us. So it's our responsibility to take action. Let me stop here. I think there are a few questions already.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alessandra. That was really interesting. Nuncia, if you're there as well, if you can see the questions and maybe start feeding them in, but I can pick out just one or two things. I loved what you said about leadership in action. So to me, leadership can't go without the action. The action has to be forefront. And I also loved that you said you were launching a call for action. So that influence network, those peers interacting with each other and encouraging each other in, I think they're key to getting women in. So if they're not in, then we can't influence from the inside. Nuncia, are there a couple of questions there or comments? And please, people, feel free to put your comments or queries into the chat. And because we only have a small group, Nuncia, you can invite people to unmute, I think, and talk as well.
Ask your own question. Participate to this discussion. I think that's what we meant to do, is really to have a constructive discussion. Only by discussing our different perspectives, we can really understand what we are missing and how to act to improve the situation.
Thank you again, Alessandra. It was a very insightful presentation. And yeah, so we have a first observation, I may say, from the high profile Berlin firing, etc. women of color and others at Google and elsewhere is going to create a chilling climate. Are companies just diversity washing? Or
I like this one. It's a very deep question. I want to go back to something that I said before. We shouldn't embrace diversity program or supporting women just to check a box. It's the most horrible thing that we can do, because then everyone else who is in the field, has a leadership position or is growing a career, everyone else will think that that person is in that position just because there was the program that helped more women to get those positions, not because you deserved. So that's why I took a step back last year in Women in AI, and I said, our mission is not to promote women in AI. Our mission should be to promote technical talent coming from women or minorities communities, which is a very different journey, and it's a very different statement. It's educating people, it's making those women and those diversity, the employees from diverse community, the strongest candidate ever for that position. So they will get that position because they have the technical skills to get that position, and therefore they will drive change because they are the best in town. So yes, I don't agree with those diversity programs just because they have to exist. However, awareness, it does help us. And I believe in this world, this technological world with AI and big data, we have a new weapon that we can use. Before, if a judge in the middle of Italy was using discriminating or bias criteria in their evaluation, it would have been very difficult to cut, but many people would have suffered that bias and discrimination. Today with AI, we can measure, we can see things that we didn't see before. We can understand whether those algorithms are creating decisions that are equal and provide equal opportunity to everyone. And if not, because we can measure, we can act. And imagine a future where you have the AI system to complement the human one, and they are the controller of each other. A person has a biased behavior or discriminate, the AI is giving them a score. There is discrimination here, or vice versa. You are a human with a high ethical standard, and you see that this system is not taking this human aspect in consideration. Let me flag that. If we do have a way to collectively listen to people and systems that flag each other behavior, we can collectively improve. Instead of today just using face recognition blindly, if we can use face recognition in connection, in collaboration with some people that are trained, so then the technology becomes very powerful. And remember, the tech industry takes action. So a few months ago, the full face recognition market, which was used in police enforcement and law, that was discriminating against Black people and minority, was put on hold. It's a 3 million market, put on hold in one day because some researcher, yes, we demonstrated that those systems were taking decisions that were biased and were discriminating towards minorities. So today we have a power. Let's learn how to use, and let's use for the global, for the good of everyone.
Thank you, Alessandra. Kalpana, you asked that question there. Do you want to just unmute yourself and maybe explain a little bit about, so we've some excellent participants in our session today as well. If you're there, Kalpana, can you speak a little?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Dr. Sala. This is a really useful thing. I turned my microphone on. As you can see, I am a woman of color. I actually do socio-technical scholarships. I'm a social scientist who, crosses over into STEM. And one of the things, I've been on EDI committees at other universities and so forth. It's not just women, it's also now race and these other issues. Yeah. And so many of our hiring strategies, especially in the institutions like higher education institutions, we really struggle to reach out, to have criteria that are effective, and also outreach strategies that reach people of color. And I'm wondering if you feel like there's a place for having these conversations about how do we hire people, get them into the door, and then support them, because we're not even there yet. So this is a wonderful talk. I could probably just sit here and talk to you all day long, but
Me too. Kalpana, thank you very much. This is a very deep question. So my belief stands in the education part, educating first and then pushing them, because if we push them first in the industry, they will be discriminated from their colleagues because they were hired without having the technical competence that the other person had. And then there is a second aspect. We are women. Let's remember who we are. There was one person in my community. She's brilliant. She can do things. And she says, I don't feel I can do the master. Why you cannot do the master? You can do the master. No, Ale, I want to do your certificate first. I want to be sure I have the basic before I go. I want to do the master, but I don't want to do the master yet. And I was, but you can, you have, no, I don't feel it. Please help me to do the certificate first, because I want to feel stronger. I want to stand stronger. And I said, let's respect people. She feels she needs a little bit of extra confidence. Let me see if I can support her. right? So I think we need to respect also the women for who we are. We want to feel technical when we enter programs, when we enter the workforce, because we need that extra strength to stand strong when we need them to work, and push them too fast into industry and then to reskill. It's a strategy, but may work only for those women which are intrinsically at a strength level, which is above the average of everyone. I feel weak too. I like to be supported. I like to be say, Ale, you did a good job on that. And when I do something that I never done before, I'm scared. So I think we need to stay together. We need to support each other. Supporting each other, I feel it's so powerful. As women, we have learned to work with men because we were always a minority. We need to learn how to work with women and to support each other. I see that there are huge friction when women have to work together just because we haven't been trained. We have been trained to become the men version of ourselves in the working environment. If we are our own version of ourselves, we can work with women so in a such powerful way. And that's, I think, what we also should teach our younger generation of girl. Be yourself, be kind with your female colleague, bring your female colleague along with you in your career. You will be stronger, you'll help them to be stronger. And it's much more rewarding than any success that you have in the job. At least for me, I have more reward, more personal reward as a person when I do something good for any colleagues. When it's a woman, it feels different.
Uh, can I just uh, ask a query?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Please go
So,
ahead.
if you see like in any of the IT sectors, in the top management, you never see a women working because the women there are very less women working in the very top management when I'm talking about women in any sector, mainly IT sector. So what's your take on that? Is it because we are people consider as less incompetent technically, or because of our responsibilities, we just give up very fast or soon?
Yeah, there are a number of factors. We have never pushed ourselves to reach those levels. If you have kids, you have some interruption, which is natural, it's physiological. So women reach men's level a little bit late, right? Because we have kids, we need to interrupt our career and then we go back and then we have this break, but it's perfectly natural, right? And then sometimes when you go back, do you still have the strength to push yourself to get to those levels? Some people do, some people don't. We have felt that our female characteristics weren't the right one for a leadership position, which was a biased things that we had in ourselves as women and men had as well, because it was part of our culture. So kindness, support, network, being able to look for each other, it wasn't felt to be a strong leadership characteristic. People have changed their mind. They have seen women in position of power at government level. We have so many now that are doing an amazing job in industry. Women have kindness, have this opportunity, this ability to look at a problem from a 360 perspective, thinking all the possible variation and always finding a solution that is the best for everyone. Those are the strength of women. We are now realizing it and we are leveraging it, because those companies that are supporting women and leveraging women in those leadership positions, they are being more successful. So it's number, it's budget, it's economics. They see, they compare companies, more women, less women, more success, less success. It's as simple as that. Now we have data to back up that women do make a difference.
Thank you, Alessandra. There's so much in what you're saying there, and there's some really interesting comments, questions coming in. Nunzia, do you want to go ahead there?
Yes, so I'm very pleased. Alessia is here. She's one of the co-chair of the Women in STEM at UCD, and she has two very nice questions for you. So the first one is, Alessandra, do you think big data and AI jobs have created more job opportunities for women? For example, I can see there are a lot of women in leadership positions in fintech and Bitcoin sectors. The second question, highly intertwined with the previous, is since you have both an academic and non-academic career in terms of experience, do you think women have the same opportunities in academia and industry sector in AI and data science, or is there any of the two where women are discriminated most against?
I can speak out of my experience. So there are two questions, the discrimination one, and the first one, sorry, it was
about job opportunities, like Alessia feels that recently big data and AI jobs have been more for women.
Yeah. So I've seen women strength in data-oriented jobs. Women have that curiosity to look into, oh, this correlates with this one. Let me visualize in the way. They have creative way to visualize data, to discover behavior. It's that I think it taps into our natural curiosity. We like to talk with each other, to explore situation, to understand deeply. So it's that going deep that women have that makes them so successful when they get to learn analytics, they get to learn the machine learning, how to learn from data and how they can use their ability to look at pattern, to look at opportunities and to ask questions, to ask the right question, to get out the right insights. So I see that AI has brought just a new world for women to be technical and very strong, because it naturally aligned with the things that we can do and we like to do. So for sure, technology has also realized that because AI and all those automated decision-making algorithms are going to impact everyone's lives, and they have seen the biggest failure of those systems just because they were designed without thinking about diversity. And women have this ability to always think about everyone in the room is taken care of. If there is a woman in the room, everyone is fine because that woman is looking after for every single person. And that's what happened in technology too. So yes, there is a much bigger opportunity for women in tech, in technology, in this moment, moving forward. We are not doing enough. We need to continue to train women. We need to continue to inspire women and showcasing that this is a job that will make them very successful.
I think very successful and possibly very satisfied as well. That's one of the things about the type of work that we do. I love that piece that you picked up, that women have an ability to do that 360 view, that they can see what else is going on there. Geraldine Doyle is there as well, who's our Dean of our Smurfus campus. Geraldine, do you want to just maybe just expand on your question? Or Alicia, sorry, you wanted to add something in first, did you?
No, so first of all, thanks very much, Paula and Nunzia, for bringing Alessandra and for this inspiring talk about the role of women in artificial intelligence in big data. So I'm an econometrician and I work a lot with data, and I'm also involved with different projects with data. And as you see, the curiosity is one of the most important things that lead and drive my research. And in particular, as you say, I see a lot of young female students very curious, passionate with data. And I think that most probably because you can imagine that I'm teaching some hard topics like financial econometrics in master in finance and in quantitative finance. But in the last year, since there are these new opportunities in fintech, I saw a lot of young students very passionate about this topic. And that's why I asked this question. And also,
And since I'm working in academia and you have experience in both the sector, I would like to know, what do you think in terms of discrimination of women? For example, it happened to me that in several conferences, I'm the only one speaker as a woman, and the other are men. I mean, I feel okay, I'm used. And I noticed that for some students, especially for PhD students, sometimes they say, oh, you are a sort of role model, in the sense that we are attending this conference and you are the only woman. But I think that maybe in academia, we need to work more. And I suspect that maybe in private sector, in industry, there are more women. What do you think?
That this problem is a little bit everywhere in many VP meetings or board meetings. I'm the only one. We shouldn't stop. I mean, the things that we should constantly do is to point it out. Ooh, I'm alone today, right? Wasn't anyone available to join us? Bring people along with us. It's very important. If we are on a panel and we see 5 men and 1 woman, let's ask, can we have a more balanced panel? Sometimes it takes as little as asking to achieving. It took as little as me going back to the government and asking, I believe we need to have a different programs that is a certificate level, not a master level, because we want to reach women and they can only commit 3 months. 2 years is too much for a woman who is in career or thinking to have a kid. And they did it. Sometimes is bringing opportunity, showcasing and solution, and people take action. People want to do the right thing. It's just that it wasn't apparent before what was the right thing to do in that moment. And if we can propose it, people will help us to achieve that. So everyone needs to feel the responsibility to take action. It's like we are citizens, we have the responsibility to tell our governments when we agree and when we disagree. We cannot take a passive role. In information today, we are constantly manipulated from content providers. We need to take responsibility on what we believe and what we do not believe. We cannot just pretend to be the victim of fake news when we have decided to disconnect our brain just to read random stuff on our social media and believe that. And then we blame others. What's our social responsibility there? Who told us to turn off our brain, decide not to think anymore, and then blame others that are influencing others on the wrong direction? So let's take our own responsibility.
I think you're quite right on that. That's really interesting. Just first of all, noticing what's going on around you, but also I think other people, if they haven't noticed, they're often quite open to a little nudge. So pointing out, you know, am I the only woman? Are there no other women that could have been invited, and sharing that visibility. Sorry, somebody else was going to speak there. Who came on?
Maeve.
Was it Maeve? Maeve, were you talking about thinking, or you just joined us? Or Ger, did you want to add something? Okay, so just one of the other things that we were talking about there is, you mentioned, Alessandra, about somebody not having the confidence maybe to do the master's program, but I think that whole thing of kind of the imposter syndrome, we've seen it in other areas as well, where men are more likely to put their names forward, that they maybe slightly overestimate their confidence, whereas women may be a little bit reticent and kind of hold back until they're asked. So are there kind of concrete actions that maybe people in leadership should be taking? So kind of, can you, 1 or 2 things maybe that you might kind of say, here's 1 or 2 concrete. So as well as kind of saying a certificate program rather than a master's program might be something useful, what are the other concrete actions that we might be able to suggest to people?
I think all of us should ask for mentorship. It's I've I've been in leadership program, and therefore I have experienced mentorship as part of this leadership journey. And I can tell that it makes a difference. When you have a VP level sponsor that get to know you in a less intimidating environment, when we establish a relationship with the person, and you know that that person appreciates what you do and believes that you have potential and will help you to demonstrate your potential, you gain a strength that you didn't even imagine you had before. So it's not about who we are today. It's about the potential that we can unleash. And we generally don't see them because we see our weaknesses more than our strength. The people outside, the people that look us on our performance in a more objective way, they see the potential in us. And they know that you're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to be excellent in everything, but they will allow you to train, to try yourself, and to become the better version of yourself. I think I have a simple example. Every one of us have experienced in our own life that when we are surrounded from some people, we get out the worst part of ourselves. When we are with the other kind of people, we appreciate ourselves as I love to be with this person because I feel better as a person. I love myself when I'm surrounded with these kind of people. I love to keep staying with those people because I want to aim with that part of myself more and more. So you understand different situation, different people get different parts out of yourself. Same things in the leadership and in your job. You need to understand how you get out the best part of yourself and train yourself to experience that over and over again. So simple example, but just to try to demonstrate, we are not supposed to be perfect, but we can differentiate what we like and what we don't, and train the part that we like and improve on those directions.
I think that's a really interesting point about building your own kind of strong, positive support network. But there's probably also something in there about the role of the leader to appreciate the people in the team and kind of spot the things from the outside that you don't see yourself from the inside. So to go back to Alicia's point about the differences between industry and academia, did you find that there was strong differences in leadership within those different areas?
I felt in academia, it was a much more open and supporting environment, and really gender wasn't a thing. I always had extraordinary mentors in academia, professors that were so deeply technical and human, that were supporting all of us as students, as postdoc. And it didn't matter if you were Italian or if you were Asian or if you were Mexican or female or man. It was just the same support, pushing us, being hard with us in the same way. So I never felt, I always felt supported. In my academic journey, I always felt everyone was there to mentor you and to support you. And the differences didn't really matter because we knew we were trying to change the status quo and we need to train more women, but we had the same potential and we had the same opportunities. In industry, the situation is different. In industry, the environment is a little bit different. So it's the pace at which you work and you achieve result and you showcase result, that your team is better than this other team and you're better than this other person, and is go, 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 go and get your result and your number in place. It's a different attitude. And because of that attitude that has been built from men, and it resonates a very masculine environment, then females feels it a little bit more difficult to succeed in that environment. Therefore, growing women, it also means to change that environment and to make it an environment that is more equal and accommodate different style. Because only if you have different style of leadership and different style of thinking, you will have a more successful industrial environment. So that's what we are trying to do. Don't try to be a man, just being a woman and being heard. And you can be heard only if you are strong and technical. So technical first, don't change, be yourself. But promoting women which are not technical, they will suffer double.
A really interesting and important point as well. So that really strong, solid foundation will give you the confidence to continue. I think you're really right around that. I think though there's a little bit as well about, rather than kind of, we have to acknowledge that men have to play their role as well in making space and facilitating and allowing the change. But one thing you mightn't be familiar with was the Government of Ireland report on gender in the higher education sector. And they were incredibly critical about how the higher education in Ireland has handled gender over the years. And they brought in a scheme called SALI, the Senior Academic Leadership Initiative. Now this is bringing us around full circle again now. You're smiling because you're probably familiar with the scheme. So it's a scheme that promotes women-only professorships. So it is acknowledged that there are systematic problems in the higher education institutions. So again, we're back to quotas now. So these women who get these professorships are obviously of the highest caliber, but I kind of wonder, are we stealing them to bring them to Ireland? Because they've obviously made their way up through possibly a more supportive system elsewhere. But have you come across the SALI scheme?
Absolutely, I know it quite well. I think is an important scheme, and if is implemented correctly, bringing strong technical women, I think it will achieve the goal and the purpose. So I think it's very important. Let's remember also that in academia, when you promote a woman or a young student to become the excellent, the better part of herself, you are not losing anything. You are actually gaining, because you have trained an amazing student, therefore you are an amazing professor. You have supported an amazing female colleagues, and you will continue to collaborate. It will make both of you stronger. In industry, when you promote a woman, you are showcasing that there was a man that wasn't supposed to be there, and these women, it's much more competent to take that position. So men in industry are worried to lose their position. So because they have gained, instead of saying 50%, right, the top 50 female and the top 50 men representing the society. Now we have given not only the top, but we took some people from the lower tier, because we had to accommodate and we had to fill those positions. Before there were no women. So we went down the grade of competence to fill up those positions. Now those very competent women are coming along and saying, I'm competent, I deserve that position, I'm going for that position. So now they're not so strong, they are losing. They are losing. The more women are promoted, the technical strong one, the more the weakest on this other side are scared to lose their leadership, their position, their power. So it's a different game. Industry and academia are a different game. There is a winner and a loser in industry. In academia, there is a win-win situation.
I think that's really, really interesting observation. Even that idea of men possibly being given the opportunity to what they call up fail. So they're promoted up to a level beyond their competence where they fail, but because there's possibly an investment in them, they're allowed to learn from their failures. Whereas women, we've kind of come to through the thread of the discussion today, that women have to be very strong to be there and to hold their ground, to stay authentic, to be true to themselves and keep putting themselves forward. So I think they're really, really interesting themes. Nuncia, have we a couple more comments or questions?
We have a comment from Kalpana. I also have a question, if like very linked to what Alessandra just said, between women and men. I think majority of us have been lucky enough to meet women that actually support women. But I think that every one of us, maybe at least one, you've met some kind of woman that actually is not that supportive of another woman. So how do we deal with those kind of situations? So, because actually, I think the message is that united, we are better for everyone, not only for women, for a more balanced, world, which could be the academic environment, the industry environment. So how do we deal, let's say, when we have these women that actually are not supporting other women?
There is one thing I always have in my presentation when I have slides, and it's a quote from Margaret Albright. So she said there is a special place in hell for women who do not support our women. And I think it's very true. We need each other's support. Alone, I can do okay. Together, we can be all great. I mean, I can never achieve in Women in AI Ireland. I have 14 amazing, talented, inspiring women that hold me up all the way through the journey. Without them, I couldn't have achieved what we did last year. And we support each other at an amazing extent. And they have seen what that support meant to them and what they have achieved last year, that they came back and said, Ale, without you and without our network, I would have never even thought to enroll in a master or doing the practice and showcasing what I did in AI in that webinar that we did. I mean, we did so many things, right? So they recognize what happened to their life, what happened to their thinking, what happened to their heart, and the joy that they live by helping each other, right? Really working together and helping each other to be successful. Every time one of them does something, we say amazing, because they always do amazing things. We chat for 2 days, how amazing that person was. And they learn to do to the next one whenever one does the next thing, right? And that it's just do experience how joyful it is. And they just, you snowball. It's example, a snowball.
I think you're right that it snowballs. I think it takes kind of a small core of people, as you say, even the younger students, getting them to reach out to their neighbors and their friends and their siblings, their younger siblings, and it does snowball from there. And it's about kind of building all of those connections. So all of those connections, the more connected, the stronger the support is. If we have any last comments or questions, if anybody wants to maybe just unmute themselves, if anybody has any last thoughts they'd like to share for today, because we're coming up on time, and I know Alessandra is a very, very busy woman. So if we have no other comments or questions, then just to remind everybody, we did record today's session. So I would just like to say thank you very, very much to Alessandra for giving us her time today, to Nuncia and Emer for supporting us on the Zoom call for today. I might just ask if people want, before we close off for today, if everybody would like to turn your video on for a second, and we'll try and get a quick screenshot of everybody while they're here. If we can. We'll try that. Nuncia or Emer or Alicia, if you're there, please help me with the technology. Where do I go to my gallery view? That's what I need to do. Excellent. So if anybody else is there and wants to turn on their camera, and we will just try and get a screenshot of that. And we will put that on our UCD Women at STEM. So thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining us today. That was a really interesting discussion. Lots of threads going through the conversation, lots more conversations to be had, but I think the more the talking we do, the greater the visibility. Creating awareness is still something that we need to do, but building those strong connections is really, really good. So thank you everybody for joining us today, and